Yes, good evening to everyone. So today I'm going to discuss about Microsoft.NET. So what things we are going to learn in .NET and how many days it takes to complete .NET basic package, and .NET means what things we have to learn. Like, is this only one thing or else group of things we have to learn? We'll discuss all those things. So this is completely introduction session. And before going to continue, what is .NET and why .NET? So I'm going to explain about these sessions. So in these sessions, I'm going to cover complete basic .NET package, which includes C#.NET, ASP.NET, SQL Server, along with ADO.NET. This is the basic package of .NET. I'm going to cover these four things in this .NET basic package: C#.NET, ASP.NET, ADO.NET, and SQL Server. SQL Server is completely not which is required for .NET, not complete SQL Server syllabus I'll cover. Once you complete this course, you can also apply SQL Server developer role also. That means complete topics will cover in SQL Server. So next, to complete this C#, ASP.NET and SQL Server along with ADO.NET, it will take 2 months time. So this basic .NET package time duration is 2 months. But actually 2 months is less time only, according to me. But we will plan according to that. So first, the sessions are going to happen from Monday to Saturday. Sunday is the only holiday. And Monday to Thursday, 4 days per week. First C#.NET will start. Most probably not in this week, next week onwards, or else in this week onwards, Friday, Saturday. Every Friday, Saturday, same time, you will have SQL Server sessions. Yes, every Friday and Saturday, same times you will have SQL Server sessions. So that C#.NET SQL Server parallel it will go. Every week, 4 days C#.NET, 2 days SQL Server. Once I complete C#.NET SQL Server combination, then later we'll start with ASP.NET. So ASP.NET I can't start initially. Why? Because to know the ASP.NET, first of all, you have to know C#.NET basics. Without knowing of C#.NET, we can't go for ASP.NET. That is the interlink is there. But SQL Server, no matter at what time you are going to learn. Anytime you can learn it, no problem at all. SQL Server is completely different thing. And why I covered SQL Server by this all these weekends means, so once we complete few sessions of C#.NET, even ASP.NET also, when I start with ADO.NET, then there is communication to SQL Server database is required. Communication, how we can do? We need to pass some SQL commands. Without knowing SQL commands, you can't understand that ADO.NET topics. So that's what better to cover weekend sessions, SQL Server, that is useful in our ADO.NET concept. ADO.NET is especially for communicating from front-end application to back-end application. Okay. Then what is front-end, what is back-end application, I will tell you in this session. Just wait. And duration is 45 days. And every day, 1 hour session. According to your timings, whatever we allotted, the time will not change. That is Indian time, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Every day session will happen 1 hour. And every day recorded video I'll send to you. Okay. So Monday to Saturday sessions will happen. Sunday is the holiday. Yes. So this is about time duration and session duration and all what I'm going to cover. Now coming to the main part of .NET. So you know that .NET is the product of Microsoft. Then .NET was announced by Bill Gates in the year of 2000. First version of .NET was released in the year of 2002. From 2002 till 2020, there are so many versions of .NET frameworks as well as Visual Studio software versions also there. I'll explain you clearly what framework versions are there. what .NET Visual Studio editor tools are there, what are the versions of editor tools, and which version of software, like which version of Visual Studio I'm going to use in our class also I'll tell you. Okay. .NET is the product of Microsoft. So .NET was announced by Bill Gates in the year of 2000. First version of .NET was released in the year of 2002. Next, what is .NET here? What is .NET? You can't say straight away .NET is a programming language. No. So .NET is a framework tool. It's a framework. It's a framework. Microsoft people are giving .NET framework tool to the development team. So the developer should install .NET framework tool first. Once they install .NET framework software, then they'll get a lot of libraries which will come from Microsoft. After completion of installation of .NET framework tool only, as a programmer, we can able to develop .NET kind of applications. Without .NET framework, there is no .NET. Yes, undoubtedly. So if you don't install .NET framework or you don't have .NET framework software in your computer, if you want to develop any type of application using .NET, that is not possible. So .NET framework is very, very important here. What is .NET means? .NET is just framework tool. What is .NET framework here? .NET framework is a collection of class libraries. Yes, it's very simple. Collection of class libraries. Once we install .NET framework software, you will get collection of class libraries. Collection of class library means what? Class library means collection of classes. What classes? Predefined classes. You can also create user-defined classes as per your programming requirement. But once we install .NET Framework software, you will get plenty of predefined classes, predefined class libraries. Okay. Now, .NET Framework is a free software. You can able to download it from Microsoft.com website officially. Okay. But even though when we have .NET Framework software, but how we can write the code? If you want to write the code using .NET Framework, there is editor tool called Visual Studio Editor is required. How Java people will use NetBeans, Eclipse, MyEclipse, EditPlus. So many editor tools are there. Like C programmers will use Turbo C, code blocks. Even they'll use Notepad++, Notepad. Similarly here in .NET we use Visual Studio editor tool. What is Visual Studio means? It is just editor tool. We can say that editor tool. Editor tool is a platform where we can write .NET code and where we can compile and execute .NET code. Okay, this is editor tool. We can edit code. We can edit our code as per our convenient, and we can run the code for getting some proper output here. So along with the .NET framework, Visual Studio is required. Okay, but how do we get Visual Studio software? What version of Visual Studio software we are going to use? I'll tell you in this session. Just wait. And next, why .NET? .NET is a framework tool. Then why .NET? .NET is used to develop applications. Why .NET means? .NET is used to develop application. Yes, .NET is used to develop applications. What kind of applications we can develop using .NET? There are a lot of applications development is possible using .NET. Just basic applications which I'm covering, console applications. It's a completely CUI. CUI means command user interface or character user interface. These application programs are just like normal command prompt applications, like what we seen in C++ programs. Same look like console applications also. And there is Windows Forms applications, Windows Forms applications, Windows Forms application. This is completely GUI, graphical user interface. We are going to deal with the controls like labels, buttons, text boxes, check boxes. We will prepare some Windows forms. So for example, here Notepad is there. Notepad is on one of the window form, which is developed by Microsoft. And you can see Windows calculator is there. This is also one of the window form, which is designed by Microsoft using .NET only, like this only. This is window form. This kind of applications we will discuss in our sessions. And even we can prepare user interface like this, we are going to give the details in this user interface, and we can connect with SQL Server database for storing the data or retrieving the data. Both combinations we'll discuss. That is Windows Forms application. And major application is that is web applications. Web applications means this is completely distributed or online applications. This application is distributed. Distributed means what, once we develop web application using .NET, once we host this web application on web server, now anybody can able to access through web, means while typing URL address www.yourwebsitename.com, anybody can able to access. These web applications we will discuss related to ASP.NET. When I start ASP.NET, I'll discuss clearly web applications. But as of now, when I start C#.NET, first we'll start C#.NET only. In C#.NET, maximum syllabus I'll cover with console application as well as Windows Forms application. And web applications I'll cover using ASP.NET with SQL Server with ADV.NET. These are the main application area which will be included in our sessions. And not only these applications we can develop using .NET. Using .NET we can develop lots of applications as per programmer requirement. Windows services is required. Windows services. Even web services also we can able to develop. Web services we'll discuss in ASP.NET point of view. And WCF applications like Windows Communication Foundation, Windows Communication Foundation, Windows Communication Foundation, and WPF applications like Windows Presentation Foundation, Windows Presentation Foundation. Next, MVC, Model View Controller, MVC, Model View Controller. Next, Ajax, Asynchronous JavaScript and XML, Ajax controls we'll discuss in ASP.NET. And even gaming applications we can develop using .NET. And mobile applications also we can develop using .NET mobile applications. Especially we can use mobile application purpose Xamarin tool. So these are the basic applications we can develop using .NET. Why .NET means which is used to develop some applications. What is .NET means? .NET is a framework tool. It's a collection of class libraries. Without a .NET framework, there is no .NET. Once we install .NET framework software, you will get these are libraries. Using these libraries only, we can able to develop .NET applications. But for sure that to develop any kind of .NET application, we need one platform. That platform name is called Visual Studio. It is also called as editor tool. It is a software. We have to get it from Microsoft.com website. And once we get software, Windows services means like web services only. Web services will run through internet. It is available in online. But Windows services is a standalone services. It will run through network. That is Windows services. We can also create Windows services. Microsoft Windows services we can call it as. Okay. So this is the basics things which I'm covering. Next, to become a good programmer in .NET, what things we have to learn. So I'm going to explain you clearly. So in this session also I'm going to cover all those things. If you want to become a good programmer in .NET, I strongly recommend 4 things. One thing is C#.NET. One thing is C#.NET. Next one is ASP.NET. Next one is ADO.NET. Sorry, SQL Server first. SQL Server. Next, fourth one is ADO.NET, which I'm going to cover in our sessions, these only. So what is C#.NET? C#.NET is a programming language. C#.NET is a programming language. Generally, what we can do using programming language, we can develop coding part for application development. So using C#.NET, we will write coding part for application development. It's a complete programming language we are going to learn. But why C#.NET? Yes, C#.NET is strongly recommended in .NET. It doesn't mean that in .NET we have only one programming language, C#.NET. No. .NET supports around 60 plus programming languages. In that 60 programming languages, 9 programming languages are exclusively designed and developed by Microsoft company. I list out 9 programming language, but most of the people in real time, most of the companies will recommend to use C#.NET as a logical part. Means if you want to develop any application, compulsory logical code is required. That logical code we will write using C#.NET. Even later, whenever I start ASP.NET for web application development, like website designing, web pages, but behind the scenes, that web pages, web application purpose, we write logic code using C#.NET only. So that's what initially our concentration should be more on C#.NET. It's a programming language. Generally, programming languages can be used for coding part for application development only. We will write logic part only. And what is ASP.NET? You should not say ASP.NET is a programming language. So you should say ASP.NET is a web technology or server-side technology. We can say that. It is a technology, not a programming language. You should say ASP.NET is a web technology or server-side technology. We can say that. Why server-side technology? Yes, all ASP.NET related things like controls which are available on web page or website, by default it will execute at server side. That's the reason we will say that server side technology or web technology. It's like HTML. Generally using ASP.NET, what we can do, sir? We can do design. What we will design? We will design web pages. It's a group of web pages, nothing but websites. We are going to design web pages or website. But once we design ASP.NET web pages and websites, but logical code also very important. Logical code, how we'll write using C#.NET. For example, let us consider this diagrammatic representation. As a ASP.NET developer, I am preparing some user interface. This is my user interface. User interface means what? Where user can interact for giving the details and all. Just I'm creating login user interface, username and password. Here I'm just taking this text box controls. These are the text box controls for entering the username and password here. This is assume that if I develop this user interface using ASP.NET, so this is button control, just login button. So this is user interface. Even we can do this by using HTML or else using ASP.NET also. Even when we design labels and text boxes, login button control, behind the scenes of ASP.NET web page, HTML code, HTML tags only will be generated. You need not to write manual HTML tags here, but if you want, you can write it, no problem. Okay. So ASP.NET design purpose I'm using. Design is complete. But in real time, only design through we can't do anything. Okay. But logical aspect also very important. Under this login button, I need to write some logic code. So why I should write logic code? I need to cross verify whether username and password is correct or not. And for that, I need to write logic code under this login button. So that logic code can be C#.NET through. Now, or else you can use any programming language. To write logic code, compulsory, you should use programming language. But here we are choosing C#.NET as a programming language. It doesn't mean that every time we should use C#.NET. Then you can go for other .NET languages. Are there like VB.NET, J#.NET, F#.NET are there? But we are talking about C#.NET only. So I'm using C#.NET is for logic code. So this both combination. Look at here, C#.NET is for logic, ASP.NET is for design. This both combination, we can call it as front-end application. Yes, this is front-end application, we can say that. Front-end application. But look at here, even this in this front-end application, some people will call it as like front-end application is ASP.NET, back-end code is C#.NET only. Yes, that is also true. Because behind the scenes, we are writing logic code. This is back-end code, we can call it as C#.NET. But what point of view it is backend code? Only ASP.NET web design point of view, this is backend code, you can say that. Because behind the scenes, we will write this logic code. But front end is only it is looking to the user and looking to the customer only. It is visible to the customer, so that is front end. But actually, both combination we can say generally front end application. But where we are going to store end user information, after username and password, checking with a database. So once we click on login button, there it will check So that database is nothing but actually backend application. So backend application purpose, we use SQL Server. Generally, SQL Server is for what purpose? Database design and database creation and all. Why database? You know that very well. Customer or end user information we need to store in a separate place with securely. That is a database. That is SQL Server database we are using. But it doesn't mean that uh, we cannot use any other database using .NET applications. Undoubtedly, you can use any type of databases like Oracle, MySQL, any database, Box Pro, no matter MS Access. You can use any type of database undoubtedly. But why I recommend to use SQL Server? Because SQL Server is the product of Microsoft. So most of the .NET applications, even in reality also, they'll recommend to use SQL Server, their backend application, to store the end user information. So this is backend application. But for your kind information here, we have created front-end application and back-end application with relevant technologies. It's okay, no problem. But here, always front-end application and back-end application communication is very important. Yes. Here we are entering the username and password. As soon as when we click on login button, it has to connect with the database and cross-verified in the database list whether username and password is exist or not. For cross-verification purpose or compulsory communication is required or not? Yes. That communication we can able to establish using ADO.NET. Yes, that is ADO.NET. We are going to discuss that also in our sessions. ADO.NET is required. ADO.NET stands for ActiveX Data Object, we can say that. Here SQL Server is for database design. ADO.NET is for ActiveX Data Object. It is for communication from front end to backend application. So ADO.NET through only we are making communication from front end to backend application and backend to front end application. Once we send request, that request will go to SQL Server, and once SQL Server when send response also will happen through ADO.NET only. Response will come to the front end application. Request and response will happen through ADO.NET only. So clear cut picture is there. For front end logic, we use C#.NET. Design of the ASP.NET. In terms of ASP.NET, we use this front end ASP.NET. But in terms of Windows Forms, sometimes we use Windows Forms application also. At that time, your front end application is Windows Forms. Front end means the application where we can interact. Either it can be window form, or it can be web form, or it can be C# console application, or it can be reports or anything where you are interacting, that is front end. Backend application means where we can store end user information finally in separate location, that is database. With SQL Server only we can able to create databases and all. How communication is happening with ADO.NET. So we are going to learn in this complete basic .NET package C#.NET with from beginning to end, and ASP.NET complete, SQL Server also complete with ADO.NET. So to become a good programmer in .NET, you must and should learn these things. After that, you can think about what to learn, what not to learn later. So I strongly recommend MVC is enough to learn, because lot of applications are there, but it doesn't mean that you should learn all those things. Okay, not required actually. Whichever it is required for your job profile, what companies people are expecting. But as a fresher, MVC basics are required. If you want to attend interview after completion of this course, you can keep in your resume C#.NET as a programming language, ASP.NET, SQL Server, ADO.NET, and MVC basics are enough as a fresher. But once you are trying with experience like 1 or 2 years of experience, then compulsory you should learn MVC, Model View Controller. But unfortunately, I will not teach MVC. After completion of ASP.NET, I strongly recommend to learn MVC those who wants to do. But MVC I will not teach. For some other faculty, they will teach MVC. You can take separate batch, separate course for this MVC also. MVC is not including in this basic .NET package. So in this basic .NET package, I'll cover this ASP.NET, C#.NET, SQL Server with ADO.NET for sure. That okay. For me, it takes completely 2 months of time. 2 months, more than 2 months also sometimes it's required, because It's not a simple thing to handle it because multi-language, multiple technologies you have to learn it here. It's not meaning of only one thing it is. So .NET is combination of things. At least one programming language idea you should have as a programmer. Why C# .NET only means most of the companies people are using C# .NET. But as I said that apart from C# .NET, .NET programming languages are there. .NET supports around 60 plus programming languages. You should not learn all those languages. And in that, Microsoft exclusively designed and developed 9 programming languages. What are the 9 programming languages I'm listing out here? At least you have to know this 9 programming language: C# .NET, VB.NET, J#, F# .NET, sorry, F# it is, F# .NET, again it's showing F# .NET. Then after that, C++ .NET, next JScript.NET, JScript.NET, next Windows PowerShell, Windows PowerShell, Iron Ruby, Iron Ruby, Iron Python, Iron Python. These are the 9 programming languages which are coming from exclusive Microsoft company. Microsoft company design and develop these languages. But most of the cases in reality, 90 to 95% of the programmers will use C# .NET. Why? Because it's most powerful language. Okay, it's almost all equal to Java. I can say that. Some extent, I can say more than Java. I can say that. Why? Because some features will be there. I'll tell you later that features will don't have in Java, but will have in C# .NET. Means C# .NET literally will support that features. And VB.NET 5 to 10% of the people will use according to their requirement, and remaining programming languages as per their interest. Okay, so client interest, we can able to choose these languages. But no matter what language you have chosen to write logic code in .NET, so compulsory this all programming languages are, it's possible to implement application using .NET framework. Means .NET framework will support lots of programming language. That's what we can say. .NET is a language independent. Language independent means what? You can use any programming language .NET will support, but Java is language dependent. You have to use only Java, others not. And even .NET is platform independent also. We can make our .NET applications are platform independent, which can be able to run on other operating system like Unix, Linux, Mac OS, and so on. Whenever we choose .NET Core, .NET Core. And here .NET Core is there, .NET Framework is there. We are going through .NET Framework because we have Windows operating system. And we go for, I'll tell you while selecting application in Visual Studio, there are 2 options will be there. One is .NET Framework, another one is .NET Core is there. Anyone you can choose it. Depends on your selection. The application development is possible. Okay. So this is just a basic awareness I'm creating here. What is .NET and why .NET? What things need to be learned using .NET? All those things. But coming to the framework versions and Visual Studio versions. What are the Visual Studio versions are there and .NET Framework versions are there? Let me explain that clearly. So as I said, that first version of .NET was released in the year of 2002. So at the time, Microsoft people has released .NET Framework 1.0 version. You can see this. I'm going to show you some. Yes, here .NET Framework 1.0 version, first version it is. At the time, Microsoft has given a Visual Studio editor name called VS. That means Visual Studio. And later they come up with 1.1 with small changes, Visual Studio 2003. You know that version to version, some small changes will come forward. And if any feature which is not useful mostly for the programmer point of view, then they'll remove that, and we can they'll introduce a new feature with Visual Studio and with framework. 2.0 Visual Studio 2005 software, and at the time of .NET Framework 3.0 not applicable because they were not released Visual Studio version separately. At the time of 3.0 .NET Framework, Microsoft people were recommended to use Visual Studio 2005 for 3.0 also. And later 3.5 Visual Studio 2008, 4.0 Visual Studio 2010, 4.5 VS 2012, and 4.6 VS 2015, and 4.7 VS 2017, 4.7.1 or 7.2 VS 2019. This is the software which is going to be used in our practical scenarios. I'm going to use Visual Studio 2019 editor along with the .NET Framework 4.7.1 or 2. But to install this software, and one more thing, along with this Visual Studio 2019 software, I strongly recommend to install SQL Server software also. SQL Server 2014 or 2016, anyone you can use. Okay. But to install SQL Server software as well as Visual Studio 2019 software, I strongly recommend Windows operating system that should be in a 64-bit OS, and minimum 2 GB RAM is required, and hard disk space means your C drive space minimum 20 GB free space need to be required. Why? Because Visual Studio 2019 software and SQL Server softwares are heavyweight softwares. It will take a lot of time to install for the first time. Each one it takes around 20 to 30 minutes of time, and even it will take 5 to 6 GB. It will occupy your C drive space. So that you should take care of that. So once you take care of these things, then happily you can install, you can download and install Visual Studio 2019 and SQL Server 2014 or 2016 software, no problem. But look at here, .NET Framework separately you need not install. As I said that without .NET Framework, there is no .NET. You must and should install .NET Frameworks, I said. But no worries. Once we go for Visual Studio 2019 directly, along with the Visual Studio 29, that .NET Framework 4.7.2 was integrated with this one only. Okay, happily you can install it, this one. And after that, SQL Server also, I strongly recommend to install. This is the .NET Framework and Visual Studio versions. But look at here, sir, how to download that software .NET Visual Framework and Visual Studio. So simply you can go to Google. It's not a big deal to download and install. So you can go to download Visual Studio 2019. Type in Google download Visual Studio 2019. And I strongly recommend to click on this link, visualstudio.microsoft.com downloads folder. Now just click on it. You will have three options in front of you. You can see this clearly. Community version is there, professional version is there, and enterprise edition is there. But I strongly recommend to download this free version, download for community, for student and faculty point of view. Powerful IDE. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment, free for students and open source contributors and individuals. And professional editor, professional IDE best suited for small teams. It's a free trial version. Even enterprise edition, it is also scalable and end-to-end applications. It is team sizes, when it is big, then you can go for this one. But these two, you can see this free trial versions only. Hardly you may use 1 month or 45 days or something. But after that evolution period will be expired, you have to contact with Microsoft people to buy these products. It's not a free. But when it comes to free download here, community version is free download. Even when we go for free download, you may not able to work with Visual Studio 2019 software long time. Why? Because I strongly recommend to create Microsoft account. That is a free account, Outlook account we can create. Even once we download and while installation time only, it will ask you to create Microsoft account. Please try to create Microsoft account while giving your mail ID and password. You can set it. And why that Microsoft account is required means once after using 1 month of time, this community version, it will stop working. After that, it will ask you to update. So to update that, we have to use one time your Microsoft account user ID and password. Once you click on that update, so immediately it will continue. Lifetime we can able to access this community and free download version. Okay, so this is the way to get this Microsoft Visual Studio, and even SQL Server also same way how to install it clearly here. Okay, so this is the basic introduction session what I'm taking for just for demo purpose. What is .NET and why .NET? What is Visual Studio? Visual Studio is editor tool, I'm saying. What kind of applications we can develop using .NET? And to become a good programmer in .NET, what things need to be learned compulsory? C#, PHP, .NET, SQL Server, ADV.NET. Okay, so these are the just basic demonstration session which I given today. And tomorrow onwards, your session timing is completely 1 hour I will take, like 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. for sure that. And tomorrow we'll start coding part of the application. We will enter into coding part. But before coding part of C#.NET, I need to give some more introduction related to .NET Framework components. Once after giving introduction to .NET Framework components and .NET execution process also how it is possible. So once I explain that, immediately we'll start with C#.NET. introduction and coding part we'll discuss. Okay, so that's all about today from my side. And you have any doubts from your side, now you can ask me, no problem. Is that regarding session duration or else any kind of questions you have, then you can ask me, no problem at all. I'm ready to clarify your doubts. Mr. Krishna and Pratap and Srikanth and Vasant, if you have any queries, you can ask me now. Feel free to ask anything related to these sessions. You can also do that, no problem. Why you don't have any software? Why don't you install Visual Studio software? You can adjust, but if it is required Visual Studio software that is properly, you can able to understand the things and properly you can able to write the code. That's what I strongly recommend. Even if you want, you can do this, no problem. Online aid compiler also, no problem at all. Yes, anybody. Okay, yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Yeah, no problem at all. So this time is same time it's going to continue. Okay, once again I'm telling you, 2 months duration is required compulsory to finish that. You don't worry about subject, so I can go through clear details, no problem at all. Okay, so for sure that at the end of the day, I'm sure about that you will not disappoint. That much guarantee I can give that from my side. And every day same recorded video, whatever I teach in the class, that same recorded video you will get through your Google Drive, so you can able to download it also. I'm going to give download option sometimes. Okay, and soft copy of material also. Clearly whatever I teach, whatever the programs I covered in the class, same thing as it is, I prepared step by step. So each and every step I maintain clearly in my document. Once you see this, see my document, you will never get any confused. Happily you can able to write coding part, undoubtedly. So that's all about today from my side. Okay, hope we'll continue in tomorrow also. We'll discuss more things in tomorrow's session. Yes, yes. So please join on this same link only by this weekend. Till by this weekend, on the same link only we have to join it. Okay. Yes. For registration and all those things, you can contact to Durga Soft people. They will assist you. After completion of your successful registration only, I'll get mail IDs from Durga Soft. Those who are interested candidates, those who are joined. Once I get mail IDs from Durga Soft, I'll send complete material and daily videos, sessions, whatever we discuss to them. Okay. Yes. So keep in touch with Durga Soft people for more queries. Anyway, we'll discuss in tomorrow's session continuously. Have a nice time. See you tomorrow at same time.